Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Did the greatest rookie season in WNBA history end last night? Also, are the Vikings really this good? Like, seriously? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel for the Giants? And Major League Baseball really messed up the Mets.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
Before we get into the Minnesota Vikings, football is king in the fall after all, but we have to start today's show in the WNBA, where Caitlin Clark capped off arguably the greatest rookie season in the league's history with another first. The first ever rookie playoff 25-5-5 game. The Fever lost to the Connecticut Sun despite holding a brief lead late, and their resurgent season has come to an end. At times, it was hard to tell in this game that it was being played in Connecticut. The cheers for Clark and her Fever teammates were so loud. Clark reflected on her season after the game.
Yeah, obviously a tough one, especially because we climbed all the way back in and definitely had our opportunities late. And then a few different miscues, and it's back to a 2-possession game, and we couldn't quite get over the hump there. So like AB said, like, it's a good little taste of, you know, what's possible for this organization and for this franchise. And there's a lot for us to, you know, hold our heads high about. You know, this team won 5 games 2 years ago. So we're a young group, a pretty inexperienced group. But we came together and I had a lot of fun playing with one another. And that's sometimes the worst part of it, is like, you feel like you're really playing your best basketball and then it has to end. And but like I said, proud of this group, stayed resilient all year and had a lot of fun together.
The Minnesota Vikings are 3-0, coming off a trouncing of the Houston Texans. Sam Darnold, this was supposed to be a transition year, a bridge year.
Yeah.
Luke Braun from Locked On Vikings. Never a transition year, never a bridge year with Luke. Not even a competitive rebuild right now, Luke. This team has exceeded all expectations. How? Why?
So I mean, you and I did the NFC North big crossover thing with Lauren and Matt, and I was pretty down on them. And a big reason for that was there was all these question marks headed into the season. How are these corners that are all like past their prime? How are those guys going to play? What are you going to get out of Sam Darnold, right? Like, how is he really a different guy than what we've seen in the last 5 years? Like the 49ers staff and the Vikings staff have all been like telling us about that he's this new guy. Is that real? What about this, you know, unproven defensive line with all these free agents and a rookie first round pick and, you know, kind of names you don't really know on the inside, and Ivan Pace being a full-time starter and like all of these what ifs. And they just hit on like every single one of them. Sam Darnold has had, I would say, one turnover that's like truly his fault. Which is wild for Sam Darnold. Like, that's his whole thing, is like throwing terrible interceptions. He's had one that you would argue is his fault, and it kind of had to be an insane play from Fred Warner. The corners have been playing excellently. The Flores defense has evolved in just the right way, where it still has its identity that makes it super, super difficult for quarterbacks to pick apart. You have that famous moment after the 49ers game, Brock Purdy saying, wow, that scheme is so crazy. CJ Stroud, head in his hands, totally flustered. So you've got all that going on, and like that worked out. Like every single what if, you've gotten the good answer from, and it has led to this extraordinarily like coldly efficient team that isn't winning on these like cardiac heart racing things like it was a couple years ago. They're just sort of scoring a lot of points and making your offense spin in circles.
Yeah, usually you win if you score a lot of points and you keep the other team from scoring a lot of points. So that seems like a good model. Like, is this version sustainable? Obviously, if you score a lot and you stop the other team from scoring a lot, but like the way that they're doing it, is it sustainable?
I think it has to be, because they're not doing it with anything that they can't repeat. I mean, their running game is basically just simple duo, and it's like working. Like they haven't had to break out. I mean, they're not winning on trick plays. Yeah, love duo. You know, the blitzes on Flores's defense, which is always the part is like, hey, eventually someone's going to figure out this blitz and start dunking on him, which is what happened exactly in December last year.
And we talked about it on the show.
Yeah, twice with the Lions and then your Packers. Like, 4 games in a row. They just totally dunked on it because they figured out exactly where they could punish that blitz. And they're playing it a little bit more normal. It's not quite as gimmicky as the Flores defense was last year. It's still a little bit more straight up. They're still blitzing a lot and being aggressive, but they have like a solid foundation of principles that's working for them. And when somebody does, because it's the NFL and people are smart, eventually figure out what the true counterpunch has to be, Matt LaFleur's up next, maybe he can figure it out. Then how they adapt to that will, I think, be the true definition of like how far this team really can go. But I don't think you see them just totally slide randomly off a cliff and be this like totally terrible team all of a sudden, unless you start getting the turnover bug or the injury bug or something else, like something that isn't a part of this needs to like enter into the equation for that kind of thing to happen. But if they just keep playing solid football like they are playing, yeah, they're going to be a tough team to beat. They're not going to win every game. Nobody does, but they're going to be a tough out.
It's interesting to me that you mentioned the running game, the defense, and the name Sam Darnold, at least in that answer, did not come up. I think that's if you're a cynic,
it should have. That's my bad.
Turn back into a pumpkin at some point. It's the fall. He's going to turn back into a pumpkin.
Yeah, well, here's the like if you want here's where the Vikings are going to fall apart. If you want the like Packer fan thing, it is Sam Darnold.
No, that's tomorrow. That's tomorrow, Luke.
That's tomorrow. That's the crossover. But it is Sam Darnold. Darnold has still very much been risky with the football. He hasn't been a perfectly safe, like super conservative with the football. He's been more conservative than we've ever seen from Sam Darnold, and that's worked out great. But you still have plays like there was one in the 49ers game where there was a snafu with the motion, and it was supposed to be a toss play. There was someone in his way, and he like hooked it over his head, and like it turned into this fumble disaster, right? And that could have very easily been picked up by the 49ers.
Will Levis was so jealous.
It was a very Will Levis play. Like those plays, I don't think they're going to stop, and eventually they're going to get punished more than they have been. But they still have not been as frequent as we're used to with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold would do that 6 or 7 times a game back in the past. Now it's like maybe 2. You know, and those, so you can have those plays happening. You look at the Texans game, there were a couple of plays that could have been turned over that would Sam Darnold was a little risky with, turn them into defensive touchdowns, and you still win that game handily. So that's where things need to go to fall apart. But there's still a lot of other stuff going well that might even be able to paper that stuff over. You kind of have to take like 6 or 7 things that are going the Vikings' way right now and say, well, they have to suddenly get bad at all of that.
Stay up to date on the Minnesota Vikings all year long by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Vikings on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Coming up, can the Giants figure this out? Before we answer that, we have our first in-season name, image, and likeness drama. GameTime makes getting to the ballpark even faster and easier. Prices on the GameTime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and their best price guarantee, GameTime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. GameTime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And the GameTime guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the free app and new users can get $20 off their first ticket purchase with code Locked On. Terms apply. That's code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase with GameTime. Download the GameTime app today. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Matthew Sluka left UNLV alleging that a name, image, and likeness agreement he entered into with the university has yet to be paid. UNLV is currently 3-0 on the season. And Sluka's agent, Marcus Cromartie, told ESPN that UNLV hasn't come through on a verbal offer of $100,000, this from an assistant coach. Head coach Barry Odom later said in a phone conversation with Sluka's father that the offer wasn't valid because it didn't come from him, but rather the offensive coordinator, Brennan Marion, who declined to comment for the story. This is the first instance of a player leaving a team due to an unpaid name, image, and likeness agreement, at least one that we know of. Don't forget the NCAA's role in all of this. They are culpable in this as well. Justin Herbert dealt with an ankle injury last week and didn't finish the game because of it. As this week has gone on, he's made some progress, as he told reporters on Wednesday.
It's doing better, progressing. We got the results on the MRI and the X-ray, both were good. So moving forward with it. It's better than where we were last week. I think it's progressing. It was just really painful during the game. It was the built up from the hits and the toll on it. But I think at this point, I've done a good job of rehabbing it, of getting treatment on it. And I think we're taking steps forward.
And the Phillies clinched a first-round bye with a 9-6 win over the Cubs Wednesday night.
This was a fun one. Christopher Sanchez, the line doesn't look great. Bryson Stott, I'm not mad. I'm just saying is all. You come up with that double play ball, and next thing you know, Christopher Sanchez isn't getting tattooed in that inning. He got the double play ball, would have been 2 outs in the innings, then no outs in the inning, and then both runs that were left on base, both runners that were left on base ended up staying on base, then ended up across the plate on the home run by Horner. So, yeah, como si, como sa. Easy come, easy go. Nick Castellanos, if he would have hit a triple, talk about Farzi benching the bar, I would have benched the whole bench and the bar and every plate I own. It's like 6 plates, okay? So I would have put on a show, an amazing feat of athleticism is what I would have done for you.
Tough start for the G-men to open the year, 0-2, and then the Cleveland Browns came along and gave them a little life, a 21-15 win in week 3, and now a short week to prepare for a Dallas Cowboys team coming off getting their butts mostly kicked by the Baltimore Ravens. Patricia Traina from Locked On Giants joins me now. And Patricia, I think the question that people have right now about the Giants is, 1-2, are they headed in the right direction, or did they just catch a Browns team that is absolutely in free fall?
I think you got to say they're heading in the right direction. I mean, the Browns, admittedly, the offense is not very good, but their defense is pretty good.
Yeah.
So, when you look at the Browns, you got to give credit where it's due. You also have to, take away demerits where it's due. But no, this Giants team, they needed this win to build confidence. They have confidence going in on a short week against the Dallas Cowboys on Thursday night, and they're just looking to build on it. And I really love the new attitude that they've taken in the locker room to where they just, they don't care. It's like, okay, the heck with it. We're going to go out. We're going to play our game, and whatever happens, happens.
The 2024 New York Giants season, the heck with it.
That's not exactly the slogan, but because this is a family show, I can't say the exact slogan.
I understand. It rhymes with truck it, I think, probably.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Malik Neighbors, speaking of, because if you're Daniel Jones, every play, why not just say, hey, forget about it. Malik Neighbors is down there somewhere. Let's just see if he can go make a play. I mean, he right now is on pace to break every rookie record for targets. He is the guy that they expected him to be right now, it seems.
Yeah, he's been something else. And what's so nice about him is we talked to him in the locker room this week, and he said he was not satisfied with the performance he had last week, which I thought was pretty good. I mean, I thought, had Gene Daniels not had the performance that he had, I thought Malik Neighbors had, a player of the week type of performance, but he wasn't satisfied. He felt that he could have made better catches. He could have come down with some of the balls that he missed that, admittedly were overthrown. You got to love this young man's competitive streak.
To be sure, and a team that 1-2 searching a little bit, they need guys like Malik Neighbors to show that competitive spirit. If they want to get back in here, they face a Dallas Cowboys team on Thursday night that is also looking for a little bit of competitive spirit. If you're the Giants, what is the approach here to getting an upset in a game that, by the way, Patricia, I can't believe this game is not on Sunday night. This is Cowboys Giants. They're always on Sunday night.
It's still a primetime game, regardless if it's Thursday or Sunday. It's still a late game, and everybody who listens to me knows how much I hate the late games. Anyway, I think you got to look at the weaknesses of the Cowboys' defense to start. I mean, their run defense is ranked last in average yards given up per game, in average yards per rush play. Their pass defense is a little bit better, but it still hasn't quite clicked. That Mike Zimmer defense, I think the Cowboys are still kind of feeling their way through it. So if you're the Giants, run the ball down their throats. The Cowboys like to play a lot of nickel, so I anticipate the Giants will have a lot of heavy personnel, 12 and 13 personnel. Run the ball down their throats, take your shots when they're there, and just, hope for the best.
If you're the Giants, what are you still looking to see out of Daniel Jones? Is there anything you think he can do the rest of the way? Because he did play a pretty clean game this last week. Can he save his career in New York this year?
I think he can if he doesn't make any stupid mistakes that he should be making at this point, if he stays healthy, and if he wins. Now, that's a lot of ifs.
Yeah.
Look, Eli Manning, and I'm not comparing Daniel Jones to Eli Manning, so let's get that out of the way. But if you go back and you look at Eli Manning after the first 2 or 3 years of his career, everybody was ready to run him out of town, and then suddenly he turned it around and he got hot and he started leading the team to the playoffs. I'm not saying Daniel Jones is Eli Manning, far from it, but the scenarios could potentially be the same. It's just that it's year 6. Obviously, for Daniel Jones, the Giants have stuck with him for for various reasons, not Daniel Jones's fault, the injuries, the lack of talent around him. They finally got good talent around him, and now they're hoping for the best. They're hoping that this is enough to push him over that hump that it's been so hard for him to get over.
Stay up to date all year on the New York Giants by subscribing to Locked On Sports today and Locked On Giants on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, the Mets got screwed by Major League Baseball. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place that first $5 bet. And you can place that bet on some early week 4 lines. Sunday afternoon, we'll see Andy Dalton welcome his former team to Charlotte. The Bengals take on the Carolina Panthers. Despite an 0-3 start, the Bengals are 4.5-point favorites, even with the Panthers getting a win with the Red Rocket last week. Only 6 teams have ever made the playoffs in the Super Bowl era after going 0-3. If they want to do that, can't lose this weekend. That's FanDuel.com for more. Hurricane Helene is making things tough for the Atlanta Braves schedule. So tough that Major League Baseball set the final 2 games of the Braves-Mets series to be a doubleheader on Monday, September 30th. That happens to be the day after the regular season was set to conclude. Locked On Mets host Ryan Finkelstein sees this as a slight to the Mets.
This is Ryan Finkelstein, the host of Locked On Mets, here to tell you about how the Mets just got completely screwed by Major League Baseball and the Atlanta Braves. Now, going into this week, there was a hurricane in the forecast that was projected to hit Atlanta. Now, we didn't know. Weather's crazy. You don't know exactly what's going to happen. But the forecast showed us that there was going to be heavy rainfall in Atlanta on Wednesday and Thursday. The final 2 games of a pivotal 3-game set between the Mets and the Braves was set to take place on those days. Major League Baseball could have responded. They could have played a game on Monday. There was a mutual off day. They could have played 2 games on Monday or 2 games on Tuesday, days where both of these teams were in the same city and could have gotten together to make sure there was not cancellations or postponements this late in the year. And these are games that matter desperately to both of these teams as they are each in line to potentially grab one of the wild card spots. So whoever wins could be in the playoffs. What does Major League Baseball do? They leave the decision to the Atlanta Braves. Now, for the Braves, if you really think about it, their options. You move a game up early where you don't have pitching to be able to accommodate having to play a game on Monday. It was not advantageous for them to push up and have a game early because they wouldn't have had a starting pitcher available. The other option, a doubleheader, again, not necessarily advantageous. Also, in Atlanta, it's very tough for them to hold day games because their parking situation is so tough in the city. Getting people in and out, it just would have been a logistical nightmare, not to mention you lose the gate. So instead of losing the gate, they decided, let's just wait and see. Maybe we can play a game on Wednesday and only one game gets postponed. Maybe no games get postponed. And just like 2 years ago in a similar situation, the hurricane just goes away and doesn't impact anything. Well, that's not what happened here. And instead of intervening, Major League Baseball let the Braves make this decision. And now these teams are going to be in a real pickle, as is Major League Baseball, because if these games matter on Monday, they will have to play a doubleheader, and then whoever wins ends up having to go into a wild card round after playing a doubleheader the day before, not getting a chance to have the off day after the season's over to set up their pitching. This is a nightmare for both teams, really. But for the Braves, the team that already has their back against the wall, being down in this race, this is maybe a good thing for them to get in. They're not giving up their home field advantage. They're staying in Atlanta this entire time. They're home. The Mets have to travel to Milwaukee, then potentially back to Atlanta, and then they could win and then head all the way over to San Diego. And that's not even to mention the fact that the Mets could clinch this weekend in Milwaukee, but still be forced to play the Braves so that they can decide who makes that third wild card, the Braves or the Arizona Diamondbacks. The best case scenario for Major League Baseball, the Mets and the Braves, is that the Diamondbacks do not win this weekend against the Padres. The Braves and the Mets, who both hold tiebreakers over them, if those two teams can win enough games to at least match the Diamondbacks win total without playing a game against each other, Major League Baseball can just decide who's the 5th seed, who's the 6th seed, and they could just cancel these games. But this entire situation was handled very poorly by Major League Baseball, and the Mets got the short end of the stick. It's up to them to respond to it, though, and still find their way into the postseason. I'll be talking about all of this on a full edition of Locked On Mets.
You guys are never, ever going to believe this. A sports league, particularly Major League Baseball, had no plan, no contingency plan for a totally foreseeable set of events. Wow. I'm shocked. Incredible. And finally, the coveted Shohei Ohtani 50-50 home run ball has been consigned to collectibles marketplace Golden, and bidding will begin Friday. Currently, the consigner is choosing to remain anonymous, though pictures of him have surfaced online. The opening bid with Golden, now owned by eBay, is a cool $500,000. Maybe Ipe Mitsahara can buy it for him. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up on the next Locked On Sports Today, what can we expect from week 4 of the NFL? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.